Jon Stewart to Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
and then I'll just randomly pop up and be like, so I'm hijacking Andy's podcast.
The Winter Faith Podcast. This is a podcast focused on creating conversations for spiritual and emotional growth through faith, apathy, and everything in between. I am your host, Andrew Gregory Frazier. I'm grateful that you are listening to my show. Today we have a very special guest. It is my roommate from college, Josh Jackson. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Also, sign up on iTunes, sign up on Stitcher, sign up on anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, keep in mind you can support the podcast using Winter Faith on the Patreon page. I also accept Venmo, PayPal, and any way you want to get me cash. Let's keep the conversation going. My good friend Josh Cleveland here. Let's check him out. And also, you can buy his music on Amazon. And also, I encourage you to check out my friend Josh Jackson's website. So we are going to get into this podcast. You have to wait no further. It's only been 90 seconds. Here we go. Let's get into it.
Andy's funny. Time for the show.
I have a very special guest, and I want to tell you a little bit about this guest. His name is Joshua Jackson. He is an excellent chef. He walks his dog daily. He is a marketing guru that I cannot afford, and you probably can't either. He is a world-class animal ball player. More about that later. He once biked from Madison, Wisconsin to somewhere in Missouri during the hottest summer in American history. I think that's accurate. He is a NFL owner. So please welcome to the show a big Winter Faith welcome to my old college roommate, Joshua Jackson. Welcome, Josh. How are you?
Well, you've already started to make me laugh, so this is great.
Yeah, I went all out on that introduction. All out.
So when it's funny that you mentioned walking the dog. So that's a morning routine of mine.
Right.
And I was walking the dog, and I was thinking about this podcast. So talking about wrapping our minds around things, and I thought, okay, we've known each other for almost probably 15 years now. I think this year is like 15 years.
Let's start there. I actually was thinking about this. When was the first time we met each other? Let's start there.
Well, I think you came back from Greece, right?
Yeah. Came back May of 2006.
Oh, was it 2006? Okay.
Well, no, that might be wrong. I came back for Tim's wedding, whenever Tim's wedding was.
No, I knew you before then. It was before Greece.
Really?
It was before Greece.
Oh, okay. Man. Well,
I'm almost positive. I mean, it was somewhere around there. Let's just say, let's say 13 years.
Okay.
13 years, which a lot has changed in those 13 years. But if I think about, I was thinking about words that I can literally say one word among our friends, and we would know, a name or a phrase, but even just a word,
right.
And it triggers this crazy memory, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, and that happens with a lot of our college friends.
Sure.
And we don't have to talk about them, but I could say like Perry, and you would know exactly what I was talking about, right?
Wow, I've not thought about him in a while.
But just like one word,
Yes. Yep.
and
Very. Yep.
so anyway, that's what makes me laugh. So that was
Yeah,
my
there'll probably be some inside jokes throughout this episode that only a few will get. Just the word box means something to us that doesn't really mean anything, probably to anybody else. This is we'll probably get into one of these, but I have to. One of my favorite memories involves Tim's wedding, and the night before the wedding, our very good friend had a cast on his arm, and he decided to saw the cast off in order for the wedding pictures. And it's like 2 a.m, and I didn't know where he was. It's like, oh, he's in it. We didn't even know the people we were staying with. We were just in a random house, somebody from church, and he's in their garage sawing off his cast. So for the wedding pictures, there's no cast. Just that one is really funny to me for whatever reason. So,
sorry, I don't mean to hijack your podcast here.
No, that's your job.
Okay, so let's continue down this, because I think for me, the Winter Faith podcast and talking about faith and how we've known each other, and I was thinking back at Harding, and we can talk a lot about things we don't like about it. But one of the best things that I got from it was the building of constraints that came along with college. So I think this translates into many different realms, but specifically for college, going, hey, this is the time that you sleep, right? Like, not, you know what I mean?
There's curfew,
like, yeah. So you have curfew. There's, I was in a dry county, so you take a lot of these things that normal is probably not the right word, but yeah, I mean, normal college students interact with and relate to college, but then it's really hard for them to go, like, to have these memories and go back, because we were so creative with what we were doing, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
There was no Uber, there was no Lyft, there was no
right.
There was no dating app, right? Like, all these things that are now. Yeah, go ahead.
Just simply iPhones.
Yeah.
We didn't have an iPhone. I don't think that came out until maybe our senior year. But
we definitely had flip phones, or like the little Nokia sort of things. Anyway, I'm thinking of stories where our mutual friend Gavin and I don't know if you knew this, but we asked 2 random people on dates for the other person.
I don't remember that.
And the date was to get tandem bicycles to pick up our date on a tandem bicycle to go play laser tag, right? Like, those things.
Yeah, sure.
Are just crazy. Like, I don't know if anyone else has done that.
No. Didn't Gavin make a putt-putt course? Or no, that wasn't Gavin.
That was Aaron.
Aaron Shaner, shout out to you. Made a putt-putt golf course for his date, I think.
It was for his wife.
Well, yeah. No, it's just, yeah, man. Oh,
so,
man.
I don't know. There's a lot of memories that we can, and things that came from those experiences that translate even today, of going, man, that was so good. And there were so many great things that came from so going back, building on those constraints, right? Like those things help define a great college experience for me, at least. And I think that's why we continue to have the relationship we do. Yeah, there's ups and downs and valleys and disagreements and interventions, if you will, but good or bad, we're all human beings, and I think that's what's been fascinating.
Well, it's just been we had such a strong friendship. We're not, our story is similar to a lot of people at Harding, where you get your really strong core group of friends that you kind of connect with. And a lot of us that connected were from the Midwest. A lot of us had moved around a little bit. A lot of us, had gone to multiple schools, and we just, we all were able to relate a lot of things. And one of the things that when I look back on those days is just how much time I would spend trying to get dates with women instead of hanging out with you. I spent so many hours doing that. I look back on it like, man, I spent a lot of my energy. I was talking to somebody and he just said, yeah, like seemed like you were always sad in college about some girl or some date or something. Like I really spent too much time doing that when I look back on that now. So that's kind of funny. And just talking about memories and being creative, I had it in the intro, but that I had in the intro that you were a world-class animal ball player. So I think we should tell the world about animal ball.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's world class, but
you're in the top. You're up there.
Do you think it's because of the injury? Like my injury was so. I think I can use the word epic. I don't know if it'll ever happen again. It will never happen again in animal ball at Harding. So it's epic.
All right, I don't think so. No.
I don't even know if they play animal ball anymore.
It was. I just remember your foot getting.
I think it was outlawed. We got to preface this.
It kind of ended after your injury really put a damper on that sport. We should say what the injury is. I'll let you tell it.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. So we're talking about the injury and then moving back to the game, or just talking about the injury?
I think you got to explain the game to understand the injury a little bit.
In essence, the game is we're in a pool. It's an Olympic-sized pool. I think that's accurate. It's a large pool.
definitely Olympic size. I measured.
But on the shallow end, and then and originally the rules kind of adapted over time. I think this was like a free flowing for a while. But those kickboards, so you need kickboards. You need a ball about the size of a volleyball.
Right.
And you pick one corner, so 4 corners of a pool. You pick one corner, mostly on the shallow end, and the reason why you pick the one corner is because there were lanes, like swimming lanes, on the other side. Because at one point, our friend, who we won't name him, he was a lifeguard. I think we shut down the pool. It was after hours or something, and so we were able to remove the lanes. So the rules kind of changed, but in essence, 2 kickboards on the side of the pool, and essentially 2 teams. And you're trying to put the volleyball-sized ball, whatever that might be, and you have to actually put that on a kickboard and hold it there. So you can get it to the kickboard, right? So it can touch the kickboard, but if you can't hold it on the kickboard and establish a presence of the ball on the kickboard, then it doesn't count.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a point. Now, what happens in the pool? The only rule is you can't drown someone.
Yeah, I was gonna say death, basically, because I mean, there's definitely bleeding. We didn't stop for that.
So, death is the only way. It's the only rule outside of points. Number of people, it doesn't really matter. In this case, it was Harding, so you have your own guys swim, girls swim. So in this case, there was only guys, which I think in certain situations it's probably a good idea, especially in terms of death being the downturn. Anyway, we're playing one day, and the interchange of the shallow end to the deep end, and again I said it's Olympic size, so you have lanes, there are tiles on the bottom, and I ended up cutting my foot on one of these tiles. And it was so the analogy would be, if you remember Jaws and they're throwing chum off the side of the boat and there's just blood coming up out of the pool, and everybody stopped. People were swimming in the lanes. People were we were playing animal ball. This was a mass exodus out of the pool as I'm losing a lot of blood. So I get out, get wrapped, and thought, oh, it's just a small minor cut. Anyway, so I had to go to the hospital, and my biochemistry professor, actually, the guys carried me to his van. They put me in the back of the van.
That's right.
And we drove straight to the ER. Yeah. So,
oh man. So I thought about this a little bit intentionally because of the fact that your professor was the one that drove you to the hospital that day, and just, I guess another great thing. What is the slogan? Great. It's great to be at Harding. We can use that slogan. Another great thing about Harding was the involvement with the professors. We all had pretty small classes. And so after this ridiculous event, it's your professor that drives you to the hospital, and that kind of leads me into the question of like, okay, we all had people that were mentors to us from Harding, from church, from school, from life. And so, when you look back at, where you're at today, like just the impact that mentors have had on you, like who are the people that mean the most to you, and why? That's kind of something I was thinking about, because I think that professor was pretty important to you, if I remember right.
Yes. So can I change it a little bit? But
Absolutely.
All right. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently in terms of the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And
okay. Sure.
There are people that you look up to, and they have an impact on your life. At the same time, I think there are people that advocate for you, right? Those that are sponsored. Like, if you think about, so I think about sponsorship in terms of, I can reach out to a person and they are also looking out for me and advocating for me. And, I mean, I'll use one at Harding. So hopefully he'll be on your podcast at some point, because there's a lot of great memories here. But sure. John David Fortner, we got to throw his name out.
JDF.
I don't know. I would assume he hasn't spent a lot of time with students and having dinner with them at their so we hosted dinner for John David Fortner, and not once, but he's
Dr. John David
twice.
Fortner.
Okay, sorry. Professor, PhD, Hebrew scholar. Anyway, he is definitely a sponsor, mentor, someone that you could go to and say, Professor Fortner, you won't believe what was just said in my New Testament class. And we can have a discussion about, but at the same time, he has that dry humor too of, and not everybody likes, I mean, he's not for everybody, don't get me wrong. But you can be, if you know the sarcasm that comes from it. Anyway, he taught me a lot about critical thinking over the course of textual criticism, biblical thinking. What does it mean to have faith? And treating the Bible as a whole, treating just that whole experience as in its entirety. So that's one sponsor. Right. One mentor, someone to look up to.
So are you saying you would say there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what would that, just to kind of clarify, what would
that? Yeah, so I mean, he would like advocate for you, right?
Okay.
Let's just use that aspect of it.
Yeah.
He would go out of his way to put me in a different position.
Yeah. Yeah, he would. I mean, if we go back to that dinner that he came over, I think it was a Friday night, came over to our house, our apartment, and we had our friend over. Talk about restraints. We had a friend over that was female.
We did. I don't remember her. No,
and so she was there, and
really?
She was there, and we had to say, I think I'll just say her name. It's fine. So Abby was over there at maybe like 30 minutes before he was going to come. And she was like, oh, I want to stay and have dinner. And we were like, well, we don't know how he'll feel about, and we were off campus, just for people, we lived off campus, but we basically were like, no, you need to leave. Like, he might not like you being here because of the rules. And so we told Abby, like, all right, scram. And then Fortner came over after that. That's like the initial memory of that night. And she was like nervous for us.
I think what's interesting about her, though, that's another memory of, I mean, we read our Bible for like 7 hours straight.
We're gonna
literally
come
out loud. Well, we are nerds.
You're right.
But what I'm saying is, like, our goal was trying to get 12 hours of Bible reading, right? 12?
Well, to read the whole New Testament in one day.
So like 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think we knew that long. But that's why we're going to do it.
Well, after like 7, which was long, I think we were just like, okay, you got to go. You and I looked at each other like, we got to take a nap. Like, this is doing sense. Anyway, so that's off topic, but I mean, he came. It was a good time. I know there are a lot of people out there that, we kind of bragged about it a little bit. Like, Dr. Fortner's coming over to our house for dinner.
We did. We did.
And one friend of mine, she was like, is there any way that I could come over and like just hang out in the closet and hear, like, be in his presence?
Wasn't that her? That wasn't Abby. That was somebody else.
It wasn't Abby. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was somebody else. Okay. Yeah, we did. We had think about if we could have done a live, a Facebook Live of that. Everybody would have been watching from Harding.
Yeah. And of course, I would say there are a lot of science professors that kind of pushed me into going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, getting into the lab, being very active in in research. There is one person that I would say at the University of Wisconsin who I was able to show him my work, and he was a tenured professor in chemistry, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd love for you to come here and work and be a part of this graduate program." And so Sam Gelman would be another person that advocated for me. And during that time in Wisconsin is when Professor Lance Hawley now.
Yeah, doctor.
Doctor, professor. I hope he listens to this podcast.
He will. He will.
Okay, good. You should have him on, by the way.
Yeah.
I have a lot of great stories with him and his family too. So,
right.
What else? What's the question again?
Well, you've named a few people that, I was just asking, just looking for people who have been important to you and why. And you've brought up this idea of being an advocate, which I think is great, and not a word that maybe comes to my mind, but just hearing you talk about it, how important that is, that you have people that are, that are on your side and really helping you grow, helping you learn. And I think you specifically had asked, or not asked, but just kind of said, I think this is along the lines of what you're saying, to advocate. What does it look like to advocate for those who are disadvantaged? Those are, I think, the words that you were talking about. But how are you, where, as, as Christian men in, being, I guess, middle class, upper middle class, master's degrees, making above average what other people make. How do you advocate for disadvantaged, and what does that look like for you, and why should we care, right? There's people that walk past people on the street every day. I think that was something you'd kind of talked about, maybe, but maybe I'm off topic.
No, I mean, I think if I think about, so I don't want to debate. I think it's really hard. It's not really hard, but I think people take advantage of certain privileges they have.
Mm-hmm.
And they forget where they came from.
Yeah.
And so I have to think about being a human being. And there are certain privileges that other human beings do not have. And so this is my personal choice to say, can I get a lawyer? Yes, I know how to get a lawyer to represent me in this situation. When there are a lot of other individuals that don't have the same education, don't have the same advocates to get those resources. And my personal belief is that a lot of those should be rights. So I think having the conversation and meeting people where they are is and seeing them in a certain light as a human being helps to change sort of that my own narrative that I'm having with myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think so.
Okay.
And I can just chime in with, the work that I do, and then maybe you can chime in with the work you do too. But just, working at a homeless shelter, I've been there almost 2 years, and it is extremely humbling to go to that job. Like, there's no day it's not like I ever go into work and without realizing how much privilege I have. Like, it's impossible to not have that. And not every, I've worked at, just kind of, church jobs, or I've worked in a hospital, and you can probably get by without thinking about privilege at a hospital a little bit, but it still comes up a little bit. But then, like working at Starbucks, working at UPS, I could definitely walk past people and not think about people that don't have the same privileges as me. But at the job I have right now, it's impossible. I mean, every single day I'm faced with, okay, I drive a car here. I have a license. I own a house. I mean, that is totally different from what I experience when I'm working with the men that I work with.
Yeah. I'm actually, yeah. Can you, I'm going to flip this around and ask you a question.
Absolutely. Yeah, do it.
So, I mean, how do you, I'm assuming there's a certain demographic, and I would say that you're interacting with on a majority level.
Yeah.
But how do you, as a white male,
right,
how does that work? I mean,
right.
I think there is, and maybe white privilege, right? And
right.
you being a white male,
right.
I mean, that's kind of at the top of this sort of conversation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how does that play into your interaction?
Yeah. So just obviously we're talking in generalities, but it's probably 50. Man, I don't want to misstep with the statistics. It's probably like 60-40 black white with the men I work with.
So yeah, so what about
the
education though?
education,
I mean, let's go that way.
Everybody is very, very rarely have I met people with a high school diploma. Every once in a while. Most people, man, it'd be odd if I do think some of the guys might listen to this. It's so funny, but and some of them, I would say, the hardest thing is the reading level stuff that really keeps people back. And my wife, specifically works with helping kids become better readers that are behind. So even more so than, hey, did you graduate high school or not? Can you read very, very well or not? I think that's a huge indicator. And then just being able to interview and have social skills, it's really hard when you've, been living on the street. You don't have the same social, what's the word? It's just a different social life. It's just different. It's more blunt, which in an interview, if you're interviewing for a job and you're pretty blunt, that's probably not going to go very well. And so it's very challenging. Just okay. And getting to the white privilege, like I've had people say I would be better at the job if I was black. I've had people say I'd be better at the job if I had been homeless for a little bit. I've had people say, like on a way far, this has only happened maybe once, but it's like, somebody's coming into the program and they say something like, well, you would bring me in if I was white. And that's obvious, that's just not the case, because we have plenty of people that aren't white that are working in our job and that stay at our shelter. But there's just different, it's totally different rules than what I'm used to. And so I have to realize, like what you've said, you got to meet people where they're at. One of the big things we talk about is that every person is created in the image of God. Every person, we believe, has a purpose in life, and that is because they're created in the image of God. We're just, me and you, we're just better at hiding our defaults or our faults. I don't know why I said default. We're better at hiding our faults, and our faults are like more socially acceptable. But we all have faults. We all have things that have gone wrong in our life. We've all made poor decisions, and that's where you have to be humble and realize I didn't choose my parents. That was just given to me, and it's the same thing for the guys that I work with. I don't know if that kind of answers some of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it totally does. And I think I have another sponsor, Professor Emery Law, and she has done a lot of advocacy work in other countries. And one of the things that was interesting was she would take on students, and I'm going to botch the story, but the essence of it, so I'm not going to even tell the story. The essence of it was she was taking on interns in these African countries given to her by these clinics. And they wanted to learn so bad. And there were certain tasks that these interns could not do. And she couldn't understand, but at some point, there's malnutrition there that leads into an education not being able to comprehend certain things. And until she was able to understand those issues, then she could see, oh, I get why Johnny, and that's not his name, but why Johnny cannot perform what we would consider a simple task, right? And I could do the same thing in saying, hey, take the 600-page book and read it, right? Like, that shouldn't be a big deal, Andy. Well, no, obviously it's not going to be a big deal for us. We're readers,
Mm-hmm.
but not everybody's a reader. So not everybody has gone through some of those experiences that we've gone through. And that, I think, is a huge challenge into saying, going back to, we're human beings and we're in different spots and we have different experiences, and what does that look like? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just the idea, just bringing up the reading part. Our CEO, he's really big on reading needs to be a focus. We have a big focus for that, and we probably should have a bigger focus on it even. But how crucial that is, and if you think about what's the educational level of your parents and my parents. They probably read to us from a young age. We both of us probably read to our siblings at a young age. Like, we're already teaching people how to read when we're still, kids almost. And that is not, that's not the normal experience for some people, but that's normal in our circles. And that's why it's so important to get out of our circles and get out of our comfort zone. And when I think about when my faith has really been struggling, I think it's because I'm stuck in my same circles. When I think about what a professor said to me was like, when your faith is really struggling, go volunteer at a homeless shelter, go work at a food kitchen, go do a Bible study with somebody in prison, then come and talk to me about your faith and how hard and difficult your faith is. I just thought that was really something that when I get out of my circles, that's when God really allows me to grow.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I didn't come up with it, but he said that, and I was like, oh wow, yeah. And you look at the life of Jesus; he's always hanging out with people he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Always. And people didn't like that. The Pharisees and anyways, not to get too Bible oriented, but yeah.
Well, I think Mother Teresa,
yes.
there are people that we don't know, but these are some of the people that a lot of people know. It was meeting people where they were and what resources, what do they need? And we've talked about the movie, Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones. It's just the two of them interacting. I'm blanking on the name right now, but
Sunset Limited.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, I heard the phrase the other day, you came in the world naked and you're going to leave the world naked, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just to go back to college, Gavin had that poster, or not poster, but he had something on the wall hanging up that's what it said. A quote. That was the quote on that wall.
I didn't know that. I have never lived. Well, no, I've lived with Gavin, but not in college.
Yeah. Yeah, he had that.
So, what else do you want to talk about?
So,
wait, I know you have a list.
Yeah, I do. So another thing that, that when I think of you is this concept that I always think of you with this concept, but to be able to reframe where you're at, like you're in a difficult situation, I'll call you and I'm really mad, or I'm really sad, or I'm really, confused. And you'll kind of say, okay, well, I don't know if you'll say exactly, but just this concept of reframing our mind and why that's important to you and what you mean by that.
Yeah. So the first story that pops into my head is, so a couple summers ago, I decided maybe 3 weeks before to get on a plane and go to China to work on a project. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I met some really amazing folks, and my friend Carrie, she's an attorney, and she went with us. So it was a good group, and the reason why I think about this is things were not going well. Things were off schedule. We had this communication barrier between even the native Chinese and our ignorant Americans. Right, we're on this bus. Things aren't going well. We have teenagers, kids with us, and we hadn't had anything to eat in a while. And if you know kids and food and crankiness, and then you add in this language barrier, it's just like this huge mess. And you're 17 hours from the United States via airplane, and we're sitting on the bus, and the adults are starting to get a little frustrated too, like, what's going on? And my friend Carrie at this point was like, okay, well, what can we do? Right? Like, just what good does it do for us to have this to take this terrible experience and talk more about the terrible experience? What value is that? And so we kind of just tried to flip the script to say, here's a completely new situation, and we need like footnotes at the end for all my quotes here and conversations in my head.
We can do that.
Here's a new situation. We have a new opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, depending on the mindset you have, you can put certain spins on it the way you choose to put a spin on it.
Right.
And so I can say, yeah, I have to go to work. Or I can say, hey, I get to go to work.
Right.
And I just changing some of those words kind of put you in a different mindset of where you're going. And it's more enjoyable, I think, if we think about it that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So new problems, new opportunities,
New situations,
yeah,
new opportunities.
And every day, I think if we're living life the way it's supposed to be lived, then that's going to happen. One of the things I associate with you, Josh, is like this sense of adventure, this sense of, I'm gonna go out and bike from Wisconsin to Arkansas. That was your idea. And we have other friends that have done similar things, hiking the AT. And well, just your sense, like the story you just told of going on a plane 17 hours away, that you've always had this sense of adventure. And I think that's something really, really good about you that, I think we need more people like that. And it does come with challenging, like getting married, having kids. Those are an adventure. Those are new things that are really challenging. And so when I think of you, it's, I think this is a good story from very recently. You really challenged me. You're like, Andy, you need to write a book. And I'm like, oh man, it sounds like a lot of work. Like with the podcast, I just hit record and talk and, edit it and put it up on the internet and I'm done. But when you think about like really doing a good job with it, it does take more time. And then I think with writing specifically, like learning to read can be really difficult. I think writing is even more difficult. And so you challenged me with that. And that's what good friends do. And that's always, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything else from you to challenge me with that, because I think that's how you do. I'm guessing that's what you say to yourself. Something along those lines. Maybe not with a book, but with other things.
Like give me an example.
With
other things.
Like, so you did, that, athletically, you're like, I'm gonna bike. How many miles?
Let me tell you the story behind that. So I was still at Harding and I took an internship in Madison, Wisconsin, for a biotech company. And I did not have a car. I didn't have a bike. So like, I don't have a car, I don't have a bike. I'm living in Harding, right? And another friend was going to drive to Wisconsin already. And our friend Gavin happened to have an old road bike and said, hey, I need to get rid of this. It could have been around the same time that he did part of the AT, the Appalachian Trail. And he's like, I just got to sell this bike. And I'm like, I'll buy it. Like I need transportation around Madison, Wisconsin. If you haven't been to Madison, and you have, but for your millions of listeners,
yes,
for them,
all 12 of them. Yeah.
there are a ton of bike trails, and I rented, subletted a place in downtown Madison, but I had to go a little bit further out to my internship. There's a bike path, and I was able to bike 12 miles to work and then 12 miles back every day. And the beautiful thing about my job was the building, and that, it was a corporate building, but they had a locker room with showers. So I could bike to work, shower, get ready, and then just go to work, and then bike home. And so if I'm doing 20 plus miles a day, I wanted to take it to the next level. So then I started doing like 40 miles by the end of the summer. And then I was like, well, I got to get back to Harding. How am I going to get back to Arkansas? And at that point it was, well, I can get back in 7 days by doing 100 miles a day.
Yeah, in the middle of summer.
Yes, I mean it was August something. I think it was hitting an 100+ degree.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was kind of the push of taking the different things to the limit, and that's how I got there.
So that's you push yourself athletically. I mean, how many different academic programs have you been enrolled?
Well, so before we get over this.
Okay.
Oh no, she changed her. No, she didn't change it. So I want to talk about. Let's go back to that conversation of academic. So it's a mixture of academics and helping those that don't have the same resources. So the problem, and I'll go to a problem we have, especially in the United States, but generally across the world, that there is the law. There's a separation now between those that can afford to interact with the legal system and those that can't.
Mm-hmm.
And there's trust issues with attorneys. And so the majority of people, especially in small claims, and it's a high number, probably 75, 80% or beyond, small claims court, they're representing themselves. Right? And so a professor of law at Emory and a professor of law at Texas A&M, a sponsor of mine from the Vermont Law School, put me in contact with them because they're writing a book called Legal Literacy and Communication, dealing with the law and lawyers. And they've been practicing for 20 plus 40 years.
Wow.
Right? And they want me to help them with their book. Right?
Yeah,
like
I believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so at the beginning I was like, well, my name's not going to be on it. How am I going to build my own reputation?
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first thought, but then it was, oh, here's going back to this new situation, new opportunity. Let's try it. Like, this is a challenge. I don't want to be hiding in my comfort zone. Like, let's give this a shot. What do I have to lose? And so, one of the professors has this quote that she references because she teaches legal writing, is, however great a man's natural talent may be, the act of writing cannot be learned all at once. I'll read it to you again.
Yeah, say that again.
However great a man's natural talent may be, the act of writing cannot be learned all at once.
Yeah. That makes
so
sense.
you can take this beyond your my challenge to you of writing a book.
Right.
But I mean, just whatever talent you might have, you didn't learn it all at once.
Mm-mm. Right.
And so I'm struggling. Like, how do I write these case studies to then put into a book that all this many years of legal experience has? And we can use the quote, it's not a marathon, or it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I think about this quote the most is that it can't be all, the act of writing cannot be learned all at once. But it's this continual, like, you just keep writing, you keep doing a podcast, you build up, right? You don't run a marathon. You're not like, I've never ran before. Let me just put in 26.2 miles today.
Right.
You're not going to be able to do it.
Right. Yeah, and it's not surprising to me that you have a group of people who are like, all right, Josh, we know you've never done this before, but we think you can do it. But, because they probably sense the same thing I do, which if I'm right, this is not the first time that you've helped out with a book. There's something
Right.
else.
Correct.
Yeah. So you've helped out with a book before, but completely different subject matter.
Yeah, completely different subject matter. So
So,
it went from science to law, but I think
yeah.
the general principle is the same in terms of writing, of how do you clearly convey to your audience the message, and in it the first time it might be garbage, but going back again, you're going to learn something. You're going to challenge yourself. It's a new situation, new opportunity. You might be able to. What is there to lose? I guess is what I'm saying. There's so much value in it, and you might not know the value. And if it's to be a prolific writer, I mean, the act of writing cannot be learned all at once. It takes time. So Man's Search for Meaning, we've talked about this book by Viktor Frankl.
Mm-hmm.
How many days did it take him to write that book?
I mean, how did he even write it? How do you go Well, I'm just saying, how do you go from being in a concentration camp to coming out of that experience and thinking, oh, I think I'll write about it? I mean, that's incredible in itself.
Yeah. But he wrote it in 9 days.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Wow.
So to take something so you would say hard to write, he would also say it was hard to write, but it has so much value to those around him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even want to put his name, but putting his name created more value.
Right. Yeah. Just as far as, other authors that have not wanted to put their name on something, when C.S. Lewis wrote his work, Grief Observed, C.S. Lewis was writing about the death of his wife and how much pain and suffering he had and how much skeptical or cynicism towards God. He didn't want to put his name on it because he thought it would hurt what people, he was this guy who was this great believer, this faithful person. I can't put my name on something that's so negative and dark. And it's just so interesting, a different person, obviously, but just this idea, it is more powerful because you put your name on it.
Yeah.
There's something about that. And
okay, so let's go back to this. So I'm going to hijack again.
No,
you're writing a book. When are you going to send me a manuscript?
Oh man,
let's start with this. Here's what I think you should do. This is my just personal opinion. Write a proposal, right? Essentially, write just an idea of what you would want to talk about,
right?
And a potential first chapter, whatever that might be,
right?
And so think 20,000 words. If you can get me 500 words, now you've started something.
Right. It's funny that you say that. I think, I don't know when it was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I really wanted to write a book about spiritual friendship or something along those lines, like authentic friendship or something along those lines. And I called one of the pretty big Christian publishers. It wasn't Zondervan, but it was somebody pretty big like that. And you get on the list of this company, and you say, "Hey, I want to write a book," and they love it because they want you to pay hundreds of dollars so that they can, keep going and not go to Amazon where you can self-publish for free. So we're talking 5 years ago. They call me almost every day. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
That number of that publisher will call. They call me 3-4 times sometimes. And because I want to say 2 months ago I picked up once, I think they will not stop calling unless I put them on like a do not call list or something. And I don't do it. So there's something in me that's like, okay, maybe, so it's not like you're planting something. It's not like Inception. You haven't planted something that wasn't there. It's, it's been there. And just, I think my podcast is a form of talking about what I want to talk about, whether it's privilege, whether it's faith, whether it's, the difficult topics of racism, or like what you're talking about where people don't have equal, we say we have equal rights for everybody, but we know it's sort of nuanced at this point as far as equal rights. And so there's just something really good that is in me that's like, no, I want to help people, and I think my words and I think my thoughts can help people, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so one of the things that was said to me when I did my last interview with Jonathan was just like, people maybe have this perception of me that I'm just like super happy all the time, and then they turn on my podcast and it's kind of like stoic or dark, and then I'll talk to somebody who really knows me and they're like, no, that is kind of you. The Enneagram 4 is kind of this person who is an individualist and has high feelings, but also has a lot of melancholy, and that's me. And so kind of just when I'll ask this question, put you on the spot. How many of the podcasts have you listened to of mine?
One.
All right. So from that big takeaway.
But to be fair,
yes,
I've only listened to one other podcast. No, two podcasts.
It's not something you normally do, right? I didn't even tell you this. A commercial break here. Winter Faith Podcast is now on Spotify. So, big news. I got approved this morning from Spotify. So, anyways,
I forgot to ask you though. So speaking of commercial news here,
yeah.
Are there any sponsors I need to give a shout out to?
I was thinking, it's kind of funny. It's so perfect. The last person I had on, I went to Harding School of Theology with, and I also talked to admissions at Harding School of Theology, and I was like, can I just throw out, Harding whenever I want? And they're like, sure. So then I was like, oh yeah, Josh, but we don't, we went to Harding together. But then I remember, technically, you did go, not, of course, you are Harding School of Theology alumni. What are you? We took classes together at Harding. Harding School of Theology.
I think I took 2 classes there.
That's so you. I'm like, okay, sure.
I took 2 classes, and I think I failed one.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's
just an opportunity to learn.
It's a hard school.
Yeah.
Probably the only fail I've had in my career, but anyway, I took 2 classes there.
Right. So we will continue to promote Harding School of Theology. I've had 2 straight guests that went there. So,
but actually, I did not go to. I think it was the other name.
Oh yeah, you're right. Harding. What was it? Oh man, I can't believe
School of Religion or something like that.
Harding Graduate School of Religion.
Yeah, I went to the Harding Graduate School of
Religion. That's right.
Which is no longer there, and I put it out of business.
No longer. Now it is HST. So yeah.
Where were we?
Oh yeah, your perception of It's so hard with only one episode. We might have to come back to that one. But anyways, maybe your perception of like I would be curious what you think of like just, you know, me taking on like, you know, becoming a hospital chaplain where you work with grief and death, and working at a homeless shelter, which works with addiction, a lot of grief, a lot of brokenness. Is that what you envisioned for me? You know, that's where my career path would go.
I honestly, and I've been honest this entire time, but I don't know what I pictured. I mean, because you've done some amazing things too, right? You went to Africa, you went to Greece. You have an adventurous spirit and kind of this, you know, the maybe not fully thought out, resourceful way.
Correct.
So I'll give you credit for that, but I think I think today I could not see you. I could see you doing something else, but I think this is where it's super refreshing to see someone pick, because you chose to work in this field, and I mean, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I just, you know, I kind of thought I would be working at a church and doing something along those lines, and I've had a lot of experiences that were difficult for me because I didn't grow up. We haven't really talked about this at all, but like both of us kind of grew up in Church of Christ, but kind of didn't grow up in Church of Christ. Like we've had varied experiences in churches. We've been in other denominations, or I mean, non-denominational, or you know, like we both have been a part of different church groups. And so when I got into kind of like Church of Christ jobs, they were very challenging for me because I don't think I grew up in a typical Church of Christ. And so that was a lot more challenging for me than I thought. And I just wasn't ready for ministry. So then to get into hospital chaplaincy was such a blessing, whether it was planned or, you know, I look back on this idea of everything happens for a reason, you know, and I just don't buy it, you know, I just don't. And I feel like my life is that way. I'm like, man, I didn't see it going this way, but I am doing ministry, but I'm doing ministry in ways that I never thought I would do if you had asked me when I was, you know, 22 at Harding. So I've really enjoyed it, and it's been something that just continues to help me, I think, stay alive, because in the homeless shelter ministry, it's totally different every day. Like it's, you know, you just never know what's going to happen. So,
yeah. Well, I think this is good.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll do something a little lighter here. I did this on the last show as well, so I'm trying to get kind of a routine of how I do these things. All right, so switching gears, what makes you laugh? What makes you laugh? So the premise of this, I'll give you some time to think. The premise of this is that, you know, life can be really, really heavy, especially when you're doing important work. It can be even heavier. We have a lot of meaning and a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into what we do. We're adventurer, but we're on an adventure to do good, and that can be challenging. So I think there's things in our life where it's like, okay, I need a release, and it doesn't necessarily have to be laughter, but I do think that is important. But we need releases from the seriousness of life. So what are those for you? And we know it's not podcast because you've established that.
Yeah, it's not podcast.
Not podcast.
I mean, there are certain. Like we've Seinfeld obviously has watching some episodes of Seinfeld. Kind of the mundane sort of quirky things are funny. I like talking to people that I can banter with on certain things. That is fun. You know, it's weird, but a pet sometimes is super funny.
Yeah.
Like they just do weird things that,
Right.
you know, like noticing Wilson, my dog, do funny, quirky things will make me laugh. I was trying to think about this. Like, there are things that, like, deep down make me laugh, and I'm blanking on it.
Okay. What
makes you laugh?
Well, I mean, I talked about this already, so I don't want to completely repeat what I said. But I mean, I love like just really dumb movies. Yeah. Like the Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey comedy stuff. I still love that stuff. Just it's kind of slapstick humor, but just like obnoxiousness. And I think I'd said this before, but like Robin Williams. If you watch Robin Williams stand up, he's crazy, and I could never do anything like Robin Williams. But just seeing that guy stand up, doing his stand up it's insane. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go play off of this. So 2 movies that you probably do not know that make me laugh. One, Thor Ragnarok. I can watch that one over and over again. It's a funny film.
Yes.
And then, man, this is going to blow your mind, but I think it's going to blow your mind. But the movie Pitch Perfect is one of my favorite,
really
funny movies.
Pitch Perfect. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I've seen that one. Have not seen it.
I mean, the Packers like the movie. And
yes, that's right. The Packers were in that
and
movie.
They were in it, and they were in number 2.
They were in number 2. You know, we haven't even discussed this, Josh. You are an NFL owner.
I am.
You are Josh. For those of you who don't know, Josh owns part of the Green Bay Packers.
Assuming people are still listening after an hour and 40
minutes. There's somebody out there. For my let's see. I'm trying to think. I have a couple of friends that listen to a lot of them. So yeah. This will be our closing. Yeah, we'll do this for our closing. So, Josh, a lot of decisions made in the NFL off season. Did the Packers ask you about firing of Mike McCarthy? Did they ask you?
You know, I think I was in a meeting and I said, you know, like, I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
So I kind of gave that back to Ted Thompson to kind of just, you know, make the decision. He's not.
Well, you know, you're a little late, but that's okay. You know, you missed the text message about Ted Thompson too. Oh man, who is the guy? Brian, Mike Murphy and Budapest, I guess, is the guy. So, what about the new coach? Did you talk to Matt LaFleur?
No.
This is making me laugh. This is good. For those of you who don't know, you can actually buy stock.
No, you can't. You can't right now.
Every so often. Like what is it? Like
there have only been 5 openings.
5 openings to buy stock in the Green Bay Packers. The only professional team that is not owned by an individual, but a group or a community. So, Josh did that with Gavin. When was that? What year?
2011, right after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, and then they did the stock opening, and that was my birthday gift to myself that year.
That's a good gift. Very nice of you. Give that. Man, that was good. You know, I was trying to think of something really funny, and that worked out. That worked out pretty well. Well, I don't know, Josh. What other, do you have any last words? I think pretty much got, we talked about a lot of things.
Well, thank you, Andy, for having me on here.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a few other things, but that's fine. I think that one of the things that I think about you is you are an aggressive learner. You're an aggressive learner, and that is a good thing. Maybe I'll say assertive learner. That probably sounds better. So let's do a plug. Can you do a plug for your website?
Sure. My name's Josh Jackson, and my website is www.joshjackson.co. It definitely needs to be updated, but super interested in the intersection between law and technology, and how do we create more access to justice.
Awesome. Yeah, I get on there. I like very inspirational stuff. It always encourages me. And then, I would say, yeah, just, glad you had time in your busy schedule to come on the show. So this has been the Winter Faith Podcast. Thanks for listening. Andy out.
Hey guys, one more John Fortner story, just for the Harding listeners out there.
I don't know if he would do it.
Ask him. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely ask. Like with Fortner, the story that I was thinking about, well, I guess we could still talk about it and I'll just edit it. The story when I went and talked to Fortner about, how sad I was about this relationship ending. And just, I made a lot of poor decisions, and one of them, I let her use my TV, and Josh and I went to the dorm to get Andy's TV back, and they wouldn't let us upstairs, so Josh went upstairs and got the TV, but she couldn't find the remote. So Josh, you looked in the couches and were like, oh, here's the remote, it's right here. And the dorm mom, we got the dorm mom involved, and she was like, this is awkward, what is going on? And so Fortner, was just like, well, what do you think you learned? And I said, something serious about relationships, and he's like, well, I think you learned you don't give away your TV. Just because he's such like a, like this educated, like serious person, and then you have a conversation, he's like, well, don't give your TV away. That's all I learned. Oh man, it's amazing.
In the stars.